Hey everyone, so this is the dialogue again. So this video is focusing mainly on how to detect deception from a guy who's trying to pretend that someone else beat up his girlfriend. Now before I go on, I just want to explain that it's not me, a female, going after men and dogging men out. What I'm showing you is basically how a human being is lying and how we can detect the lying and the deception that is going on in front of our faces. Now in the Dunedin study, which is in New Zealand, they did prove that women have similar amounts of domestic abuse against their partners, be they female or male, but it's just that males tend to be much more harsher and much more forceful when they do hit women. So they cause more damage. It's just interesting to note that. I'll just show you some pre-footage of the girlfriend who was beaten up by this man, and let's have a look.
Where he's had me on the bed and he's smashed my face in. That's all my blood there. There's a handprint where I've tried to drag myself away from him. So, and there's a few spots of it on the bottom bit there too. There's blood all up here too, look. That's all my blood sprayed up the wall.
Now, as you can see, people, is that she's pretty much beaten up black and blue. She is not in a good way. So the fantastic thing is she survived that last piece of abuse. Now I'm going to show you some grainy footage of the boyfriend where he is in denial that he actually did this beating up of his girlfriend, and he blamed it on a drug dealer. So let's have a look at more or less his deception in his body, in his face, in his eyes, and in his demeanor. So just look at the way that he's sitting. He's actually turtling a little bit, where his head is down and his arms are close to his body, so he's keeping himself safe.
Can you tell me what led up to you being arrested?
She went out to meet a dealer sometime last, I think it was the night time, because it was...
Okay, did you see what he did? What did she do? So he touched his forehead and his eyes as soon as she asked the question. This is probably not his baseline. When we touch ourselves, it's either a sense of soothing ourselves, or it's a shield between your eyes and the person looking at you. It's just a subconscious shielding.
Dark, obviously lost track of time.
Now he's folded up his arms and he's moved forward and looking up at the interviewer, and this is a submissive stance, but he is folding his arms to keep himself safe.
Been up for that long.
And he's moving around a lot.
And came back in that state.
And what's...
Okay, so let's go back just a little bit. You'll see that he closes his eyes. He closes his eyes. That's also an indication. Is it bang on? We would have to see everything else in regard to this, but he closes his eyes quite a bit. And this is also a shielding to keep himself safe from the interviewer or revealing the truth.
Came back in that state.
And what state
And of course he shook his head and just sort of dismissed it with a shrug of the shoulder.
are you talking about when you say...
Her face was really bad.
Did you see him fling his hand right in front of his face? So it's like he's flipping his girlfriend off.
Badly bruised, and her nose was bleeding, and it continued to bleed.
But I just want to show you his shoulder shrug, and he shrugs about 2 or 3 times.
Obviously lost track of time. Been up for that long. And came back in that state.
And what state are you talking about when you say...
Her face was really badly bruised, and her nose was bleeding, and it continued to bleed.
What did her eyes look like?
Okay, did you see him move his head to his left and shrug his shoulders? He really does have contempt for his girlfriend. He really does. He takes a sip of water to soothe his throat because his throat is dry. You can imagine him itching his nose soon because the blood would have rushed to his nose. So he's done a shoulder shrug. He's flipped her off with his head, and he's taken a drink. That's 3 different mannerisms of deception. It's a cluster.
One of them she couldn't see out of it.
Did she explain what happened to her?
Just said he gave her a good hiding because she couldn't pay him.
Once again, he grabs the water and he did a slight shaking of the head, which is incongruent with what he's saying.
Who's he?
I can't name him.
And of course, if you can see, his eyes are slightly closed again and his mouth is a little bit pursed. Often when people pull their lips into yourself, It means you're trying to keep things from being leaked out. So this is basic body language in regard to obvious deception and clustering of deception. So not a nice guy, obviously. But once again, I just want to remind you all that it's not man bashing. It's basically looking at deceptive behavior, which is actually more obvious. Thanks for watching the dialogue.